Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Star Wars channel. I'm so grateful you found your way here tonight, drifting through the quiet of your own galaxy and into this soft corner of a far, far away one. Maybe it's been a long day. Maybe your thoughts feel like ships still rushing through hyperspace. Or maybe you're simply ready to let the night settle around you like a warm cloak. There's nothing you need to do now but rest. Let your breathing slow. Let your shoulders soften. And let your mind float free, like a lone star skimming across the velvet dark. Tonight, we're traveling to an era wrapped in mystery and moonlit shadows, a time before the rise of empires, before the Skywalkers, before the galaxy knew the meaning of Sith reborn. This is the age of acolytes, of silent apprentices, of a darkness still whispering beneath the golden glow of the High Republic, an era when the Force trembled with unseen change. When ancient temples stirred, visions dimmed, and the first soft steps toward the long night began. As you lie back and drift deeper into comfort, we'll wander through these 100 sleepy facts like travelers guided by the dim light of distant stars. No urgency, no fear, only a calm journey into forgotten corners of the Force and the shadows waiting quietly at its edge. So close your eyes, feel the galaxy settle around you, and may the Force be with you, always. 1. A golden age at dusk. In the quiet expanse of the High Republic, the galaxy shimmered with a gentleness rarely seen in its long history. It was an age of progress when hyperspace lanes grew safer and new worlds joined the Republic with open hearts. Yet beneath this golden glow, subtle currents began to shift, like faint ripples under a still lake. The Jedi stood tall as guardians, unaware that the light they cherished was already beginning to dim. Their temples were bright, their teachings serene, but the Force itself whispered of imbalance. And in that soft murmur, the earliest hints of shadow stirred. And from that fading glow, another truth waited to rise. 2. The Jedi at their height. Across countless star systems, the Jedi of this era walked with a confidence born from centuries of peace. With robes flowing like waterfalls of calm, they mediated conflicts, healed wounds, and guided civilizations with steady hands. To ordinary beings, they appeared almost mythic. Serene protectors who touched the heart of the Force with effortless grace. Yet such height carries its own fragility. The Jedi saw the galaxy through the lens of harmony, and in doing so, they missed the gathering storm that crept in silence. Their light was bright, yes, but not yet ready for what approached from the edges of the unknown. And in their radiance, shadows quietly lengthened. 3. The Republic's gentle glow. The Republic, during the Acolyte era, was a place of hope. Starports gleaming with new travelers, academies filled with young minds dreaming of a better galaxy, and senators who still believed, or tried to believe, in unity over power. Trade routes prospered, and diplomacy flourished like spring blossoms across distant worlds. To many, this period felt like the galaxy's deep exhale, a moment of peace after ages of turbulence. But like all sunsets, its beauty carried the promise of night. For while the Republic glowed, it did not see the cracks forming beneath its foundations. The darkness was patient, watching, waiting. And from that gentle calm, the first stirrings of night began to breathe. 4. Temples, across the stars. Across the vastness of the galaxy, Jedi temples rose like gentle beacons, places where silence wrapped around ancient stones and the hum of the Force resonated through every hall. Each temple carried its own character, some carved into mountain peaks, brushed by thin, icy winds. Others nestled among forests where luminous insects drifted through the night like tiny stars. These sanctuaries were more than structures. They were living memories of the Order, repositories of wisdom gathered over millennia. Yet even as their crystals glowed with calm light, a faint unease stirred beneath their floors, unnoticed by those who meditated above. And beneath each sacred chamber, another story waited to be uncovered. 5. Lightsabers of many colors. The Jedi of this era wielded lightsabers that shimmered in hues as varied as the beings who held them. Blues glowed with quiet assurance, greens pulsed with thoughtful wisdom, and rare yellows sparkled like dawn on unknown horizons. Each blade was a reflection of its wielder's spirit, a song sung through kyber crystal resonance. When activated, these sabers hummed like lullabies, sending soft vibrations into the still air. They were symbols of guardianship, not instruments of war. In their warm glow, Jedi found comfort, a promise that the light would always guide their hand. Yet the kyber, ever attuned, felt something shifting in the Force. And in that faint tremor, destiny began to bend. 6. Guardians of peace, not soldiers. During the Acolyte era, the Jedi were not generals or warriors, but gentle stewards of balance. They solved disputes with words, not weapons, and walked among communities as teachers, counselors, and healers. Their mission was to calm storms before they ever became tempests. And for a long while, this approach worked. The galaxy basked in their serenity. But peace, when too comfortable, can dull the senses. The Jedi grew so used to harmony that the idea of a returning darkness felt impossible, almost unthinkable. Their hearts stayed open, yet their vision narrowed, missing the quiet rise of unrest in unseen corners. And in that soft complacency, shadows found their chance to grow. 7. Whispers of complacency. As peace endured through generations, the Jedi began to assume it was the natural state of the galaxy. They believed their presence alone ensured balance, like lanterns that would forever keep the night away. In quiet council chambers, some masters felt a subtle unease, a question forming like a ripple beneath still waters. But their concerns dissolved beneath layers of tradition and confidence. The Order had grown comfortable, trusting in its own infallibility. And though the Force nudged them gently, urging awareness, many brushed aside those whispers. In the soft glow of their certainties, they failed to notice the first fractures forming. And from those unnoticed tremors, the future began to turn. 8. The Force, quiet but shifting. Throughout the Acolyte era, the Force carried a delicate tension, like a distant chord vibrating beneath cosmic silence. Jedi attuned enough to listen deeply sensed something stirring. A faint imbalance, an echo that didn't belong. It moved softly, in the spaces between meditation breaths, like a shadow slipping across starlight. Some believed it was simply the natural ebb of the Force, a passing wave with no greater meaning. Others felt their visions blur, their intuitions clouded by something they could not name. The galaxy remained calm, yet its spiritual heartbeat had begun to flutter in unfamiliar ways. And within that quiet shift, darker tides slowly awakened. 9. Shadows on the horizon. Even as the galaxy thrived, subtle signs of rising danger appeared at its farthest edges. A missing starship here, a corrupted Force presence there, a world where nature behaved strangely without explanation. These moments were easy to dismiss, scattered across light years and separated by politics and pride. But to those who paid close attention, they formed a pattern, a creeping dusk approaching from beyond the known. The Jedi, confident in their golden age, looked toward the past for wisdom, unaware that the future was calling to them with growing urgency. The darkness had not yet arrived, but it had begun to breathe, and beyond that distant horizon, the night prepared its return. 10. A galaxy without war. During the twilight of the High Republic, the galaxy rested in a rare stillness. Generations had lived without the shadow of great conflict, and most beings believed such peace would last forever. Children grew up hearing stories of ancient battles as distant myths rather than looming possibilities. Worlds traded more in culture than in weapons, and starships glided through hyperlanes with a sense of trust, not fear. But true calm can be deceiving. Beneath this gentle era, the Force sensed an imbalance beginning to take shape, a soft shift that brushed like cool wind against the edges of destiny. And through that quiet wind, the night stretched closer still. 11. The Masters of Serenity. The Jedi Masters of this age carried themselves with a grace born from centuries of study and contemplation. Their eyes held galaxies of wisdom, and their words flowed like gentle streams over polished stone. Many spent their days in meditation chambers, listening for the deeper harmonies of the Force. They believed serenity was not only a discipline, but the essence of who they were. Yet even they were not immune to blind spots. Their long peace had sheltered them from recognizing how quickly darkness can grow in neglected corners. Despite their clarity, they saw only what they expected to see. And from that serene stillness, a new uncertainty slowly bloomed. 12. The Knights who wandered. Jedi Knights of the Acolyte era roamed the galaxy as gentle guides, traveling to distant systems where their presence brought comfort and calm. They listened to disputes, sought harmony among divided communities, and protected travelers from dangers both natural and unseen. Their starships were quiet refuges, places where meditation softened the hum of hyperspace. These knights believed deeply in compassion, trusting that peace could be nurtured through patience and understanding. But as small disturbances flickered across the galaxy, many passed by unnoticed, dismissed as rare anomalies. The knights wandered with open hearts, but not always open eyes. And along their wandering paths, shadows began to follow. 13. Padawans seeking balance. Young Padawans of the Acolyte era carried hearts full of questions, dreams, and quiet hopes. They trained beneath towering temple spires, practicing movements that felt like poetry, guided by the Force itself. Their days were filled with lessons on empathy, patience, and inner stillness, virtues meant to anchor them as they stepped into the greater galaxy. Many sensed the faint unease drifting through the Force, but they lacked the words to describe it, like children feeling a storm that adults insist is not coming. Though small in number, these Padawans were deeply attuned, their instincts whispering warnings no one wished to hear. And in their searching hearts, the first sparks of change quietly flickered. 14. The Code, interpreted softly. During this peaceful age, the Jedi Code was taught more as gentle philosophy than strict doctrine. Masters encouraged reflection rather than rigidity, inviting Padawans to understand the spirit of the Code, not just its words. There is no emotion, there is peace, was explored as a path to clarity, not denial. There is no ignorance, there is knowledge, reminded them that every being, even the frightened or the flawed, had something to teach. This soft interpretation created harmony, but it also allowed nuance to slip into uncertainty. Subtle misreadings and personal interpretations sometimes went uncorrected, planting seeds of confusion that the dark side could quietly exploit. And in those softened teachings, the shadows found room to breathe. 15. Light side traditions. The Jedi of this era embraced rituals that connected them to the living force in calm and beautiful ways. There were dawn meditations atop temple terraces, where morning light washed over robes like liquid gold. There were communal gatherings in crystal-lit chambers, where voices rose in soft harmony, echoing through ancient halls. Some traditions were small and personal, a knight whispering gratitude to their kyber crystal, a Padawan lighting a candle before a long journey. These moments nourished the order, creating an atmosphere of peace so profound it felt unbreakable. And yet, even the most radiant traditions cannot shield against a darkness patient enough to wait beyond the light. And from within those cherished rituals, destiny continued its quiet turning. 16. The Jedi's blind spots. Even at the height of their wisdom, the Jedi of this era carried quiet blind spots woven from centuries of comfort. They trusted deeply in their traditions, believing they understood every contour of the Force, every danger that might rise against them. But the galaxy is vast, and the Force ever-changing. Subtle warnings slip through unnoticed, like whispers fading before reaching attentive ears. Places strong with shadow were dismissed as anomalies, and individuals struggling with fear or anger were treated as distant concerns rather than urgent signs. Their hearts were pure, but their understanding incomplete. A softness that the dark side watched with growing interest, and through those unseen gaps, the shadows found their silent pathways. 17. Diplomats, more than warriors. In the Acolyte era, the Jedi saw themselves not as fighters, but as mediators who could guide the galaxy toward peace through understanding. Their robes carried no rank insignias, their sabers rarely left their belts, and their minds leaned toward de-escalation rather than conflict. They traveled to trade outposts, frontier colonies, and Senate chambers, speaking with voices meant to soothe rather than command. Their wisdom resolved countless disagreements before they ever became crises. Yet their gentle approach also meant they never fully prepared for the possibility of a sudden darkness rising. Their strength had become diplomacy, beautiful, noble, but disarming. And in that devotion to peace, danger crept ever closer. 18. Secrets buried beneath temples. Beneath the Jedi temples of the High Republic lay chambers forgotten by time. Old vaults, sealed archives, and meditation caverns carved in eras when the galaxy was far less certain. Some rooms held artifacts that hummed faintly with ancient power. Others contained scrolls, warning of the dark side's return. Prophecies once studied carefully, but now viewed as relics from a distant age. The masters rarely ventured into these lower levels, believing their relevance had faded. Dust gathered over truths the Order no longer wished to confront. But secrets, even dormant ones, have energy. And in those quiet depths, the Force stirred restlessly, waiting for someone, light or dark, to listen. And from those forgotten chambers, destiny's soft echo began to rise again. 19. Jedi who listened. Too little among the Jedi of this era were those who sensed faint tremors in the Force, but hesitated to speak aloud, unsure whether their concerns were intuition or imagination. When they did share their worries, they were often met with patient smiles, gentle assurances that all was well. Some masters believed the galaxy had outgrown true darkness, and so their ears grew selective, hearing only what fit their view of harmony. Voices that warned of imbalance became quiet, fading into temple corridors like drifting echoes. It wasn't arrogance, but a subtle unwillingness to disrupt the peace they cherished so dearly. And in that gentle dismissal, the coming night deepened its hold. 20. Masters who sensed the change. Too late. There were masters, however, who felt the shift unmistakably. A cooling in the cosmic current, a silence where the Force once sang. These rare few meditated with increasing unease, searching for clarity in visions that appeared fragmented and clouded. They sensed a presence moving in the dark, something deliberate and patient. But the clues were scattered across systems and decades, too faint to form a clear warning. When patterns finally emerged, the shadow had already grown roots, spreading through forgotten corners of the galaxy. Even those who saw the truth coming found themselves unprepared, their revelations arriving like whispers seconds before dawn. And by the time they understood, the shadow had already stepped forward. 21. The Force grows uneasy. Across the galaxy, the Force itself trembled, not violently, but subtly, like a breath held too long. Jedi meditators felt a tension they could not unravel, a slight distortion that flickered at the edges of their awareness. The light still shone, but its warmth felt thinner, stretched over something hidden beneath. Creatures sensitive to the Force behaved strangely, and visions appeared more frequently, though their meanings were tangled and elusive. It was as though the cosmic balance was quietly shifting, preparing for a confrontation centuries in the making. The galaxy remained unaware, living peacefully under starry skies. But the Force knew, and within that uneasy stillness, darkness began its quiet return. 22. Ancient darkness awakens. In forgotten corners of the galaxy, echoes of the ancient Sith began to stir like distant thunder, rolling beneath a tranquil sky. The dark side had never truly vanished. It had simply waited, coiled in the quiet places where no Jedi bothered to look. Old artifacts warmed with an eerie glow. Long, silent ruins began to hum with dormant power. And worlds once scarred by conflict felt the return of a presence older than memory. This awakening did not come with violence, but with a subtle breath, a slow exhale of shadow stretching after centuries of stillness. Most beings sensed nothing, but the Force shivered, and from that ancient stirring, a new chapter of night began to form. 23. Worlds touched by night. There were planets during this era where the dark side lingered like a cold mist rising after sundown. On some worlds, forests whispered with voices not carried by wind. On others, caves pulsed with crimson light emanating from crystals twisted by centuries of despair. Travelers spoke of strange sensations, chills that ran along their spines, dreams that felt heavier than sleep, silences that stretched too long. The Jedi rarely ventured to these places unless absolutely necessary, believing the darkness there contained no immediate threat. Yet these worlds served as beacons for those who sought forbidden power, guiding them like lanterns lit with shadow. And upon those haunted landscapes, the seeds of darkness grew deeper roots. 24. A Sith legacy. Long thought. Gone for generations, the galaxy believed the Sith extinct, a closed chapter in history, defeated and dissolved into legend. The Jedi taught that the Dark Lords had vanished centuries ago, their ambitions smothered by time. But darkness rarely ends. It hides, evolves, and waits. Far from the grand temples and senate chambers, the Sith tradition endured in secrecy, passed through whispers, rituals, and the rule of two. Their legacy was not of large armies, but of patience, a slow weaving of threads meant to unravel the Jedi from within. And while the Order basked in its golden peace, the Sith quietly sharpened their purpose. And from that lingering legacy, the rise of a hidden enemy quietly unfolded. 25. The Rule of Two, working in silence. Deep within the unseen folds of the galaxy, the ancient Sith doctrine known as the Rule of Two lived on. A master and an apprentice, bound by shadow and ambition. Unlike the armies of old, or the empires yet to rise, this pair thrived in secrecy, cultivating patience like a slow-burning ember. Their power grew not through open conquest, but through quiet observation and manipulation. A single whisper here, a subtle influence there, all threaded together with long-term purpose. While the Jedi believed the Sith long gone, the Rule of Two guided each step in the dark, preparing for a day when subtlety would give way to revelation. And in that quiet discipline, the future of the galaxy was reshaped. 26. The craft of hidden apprentices. In the shadows, Sith apprentices were trained not with the loud clashing of sabers, but with lessons whispered like venom in the dark. They learned to mask their presence in the Force, to think in angles unseen by Jedi minds, and to move through the galaxy without leaving traces behind. Their training was harsh, but also precise, shaped to mold them into instruments of subtle disruption. They could stand beside a Jedi and appear as nothing more than an ordinary traveler, hiding storms of emotion beneath carefully sculpted stillness. Their greatest weapon was not power, but invisibility. And from such hidden teachings, the galaxy's darkest secrets quietly shifted. 27. The lure of forbidden knowledge. Across forgotten ruins and ancient texts, the dark side offered promises to those brave, or desperate, enough to listen. The allure was never loud. It came as a murmur, promising clarity and confusion, strength and vulnerability, and answers to questions the Jedi refused to confront. Forbidden holocrons glowed with secrets older than the Republic, containing wisdom shaped by passion, fear, ambition, and raw survival. Those who touched this knowledge felt both fear and exhilaration, drawn toward paths they once thought impossible. And though the Jedi warned against such temptations, their caution seldom addressed the deeper needs that drove beings toward these shadows. And within those forbidden whispers, destiny found new wanderers to claim. 28. Fear growing untouched. Across the peaceful worlds of the High Republic, quiet pockets of fear began to take shape. Small, personal anxieties that seemed too minor for the Jedi to notice. Farmers worried about strange changes in their harvests. Pilots felt uneasy without knowing why. Even children sensed a heaviness in their dreams, though adults brushed it aside. Fear, left unaddressed, grows roots. And because the galaxy believed itself safe, these emotional undercurrents spread unnoticed, deepening in the shadows of ordinary life. The dark side thrives not on great battles, but on unspoken worries, slowly expanding through hearts that feel unheard. And in those quiet chambers of fear, the night found fertile ground. 29. Anger, hidden behind calm masks. In a time when peace was expected, anger became a feeling many did not know how to name or express. Senators hid their frustrations behind polished speeches. Traitors swallowed resentment over unfair treaties. Even some Jedi buried their agitation under layers of meditative calm, believing any flicker of emotion to be a personal failing. But suppressed anger does not disappear. It lingers like embers beneath ash, waiting for a breath of wind. The dark side sensed this, a galaxy pretending to be tranquil, while small storms brewed inside countless beings. Those hidden tempests created cracks where shadow could seep through. And beneath those calm masks, the ember of darkness glowed faintly brighter. 30. The balance. Subtly shifting. Throughout the Acolyte era, the Force experienced a slow, nearly imperceptible shift, like a great cosmic tide turning over the course of centuries. Jedi attuned to the currents felt it first, not as a warning, but as a gentle imbalance they couldn't quite identify. The light still shone brightly, but it felt thinner, stretched across a galaxy where shadows had begun to deepen. This shift was not yet a threat, merely a quiet rebalancing as old energies stirred awake. But balance is delicate. When one side rises, the other must respond. And so the galaxy drifted toward a moment when light and dark would again collide. And from that subtle tilt, destiny leaned softly toward the night. 31. A seeker, drawn to shadows. Among the countless souls living in this quiet era was one who felt an unexplainable pull toward the darker corners of the galaxy. A seeker whose journey would one day echo through the halls of both Jedi and Sith history. This individual wasn't born into darkness. Instead, they were shaped by wounds the galaxy failed to see. They felt the Force whisper to them in ways that did not match Jedi teachings, tugging them not toward peace, but toward unanswered questions. In lonely moments, beneath starlit skies, they sensed something calling. A presence, patient, ancient, and strangely comforting. And in that curious pull, the first steps toward becoming an acolyte quietly began. 32. A child of loss and anger. Before rising into shadow, the acolyte was shaped by grief, the kind that settles deep in the heart, soft but unrelenting. Loss carved their childhood, leaving empty spaces where comfort should have lived. Anger grew slowly, not as a blaze, but as a quiet warmth that made them feel powerful when the world felt cold. Those who might have helped misunderstood their pain, offering discipline instead of compassion, silence instead of understanding. The Force surrounded them, but it no longer felt like light. Instead, it felt like a distant song growing harder to hear. That loneliness became a doorway, one the dark side stepped through gently, and from that unspoken sorrow, destiny found a new path to shape. 33. Whispers from a secret master. Every acolyte is shaped by a guide, and in this era, the guide moved unseen. A master cloaked in secrecy, patience, and the quiet certainty of the Sith tradition. Their teachings did not roar like thunder. They slipped in like fog, soft and persuasive. They offered answers where the Jedi had offered silence, purpose where life had offered confusion, and strength where fear once lived. The acolyte listened, drawn in by the promise of understanding the emotions they had long been told to suppress. Over time, these whispers grew familiar, comforting, and binding. A master and an apprentice joined in shadow. And through those whispered lessons, the rise of darkness took its next breath. 34. A path diverging from light. There comes a moment in every life when a single choice nudges destiny in a new direction. For the acolyte, that moment unfolded quietly, not in battle, not in anger, but in reflection. They stood at a crossroads, shaped by questions the Jedi never answered, and emotions they were told to silence. The path of light felt distant, blurred by memories of loss and misunderstanding. Yet in the shadows, things felt clearer, more honest. The dark side didn't demand denial. It encouraged feeling, expression, release. And so, Step by gentle step, the Acolyte drifted from the teachings of the Jedi, following a different kind of truth. And with that quiet divergence, the knight gained a new traveler. 35. Training in forbidden arts. With their master's guidance, the Acolyte began learning rituals older than the Republic itself, practices the Jedi had sealed away, hoping they would one day be forgotten. These teachings were not loud or dramatic. They were subtle, rooted in control of emotion and the shaping of inner storms. They learned to sense the Force through anger rather than serenity, to draw power from pain rather than release it. Meditation shifted into something deeper, heavier, tinged with currents the Jedi refused to explore. Each lesson felt like peeling away layers of fear, revealing a strength they never knew they possessed. But such strength always comes at a price. And in those forbidden teachings, the shadow deepened its hold. 36. A heart torn between loyalties. Despite their growing bond with the dark side, a part of the Acolyte still longed for the warmth of the light, the comfort of companionship, the sense of belonging the Jedi once promised. Memories of gentler days lingered like distant stars in a night sky, faint but constant. They felt the tug of both paths, one offering clarity through emotion, the other offering peace through discipline. This inner conflict shaped every choice, pulling them between loyalty to their hidden master and the quiet ache for connection they could never fully escape. It was a battle fought not with sabers, but within the soul. And from that inner struggle, destiny waited for the moment to unfold. 37. Moments of compassion, fading still. Even as the Acolyte stepped deeper into shadow, traces of compassion continued to flicker within them. Small, fragile lights that refused to go out. They might pause to help a stranger, or hesitate before causing harm, sensing the echo of who they once hoped to become. These moments were gentle reminders of the warmth they had known before sorrow reshaped their destiny. Yet each act of kindness felt more distant than the last, like memories carried on a fading breeze. Their master saw this softness and warned that such sentiment only weakened resolve. Slowly, the Acolyte learned to quiet these impulses, allowing the darkness to settle in their heart like evening mist. And as that compassion dimmed, the night embraced them a little more. 38. A destiny crafted in secrecy. The Acolyte's path was not forged by fate alone, but carefully shaped by the unseen hand of their Sith master. Every lesson, every trial, every whispered reassurance was designed to guide them toward a singular purpose, one that even the Acolyte could not fully see. Their training took place far from prying eyes, in ruins where the stones remembered ancient rituals, and in forests where even the wildlife moved with wary stillness. The galaxy believed it was safe, untouched by Sith influence, while in reality, a new servant of shadow was being molded with delicate precision. What the Jedi thought impossible was already taking form. And from that hidden shaping, the future twisted ever so softly toward darkness. 39. The lure of power over peace. Peace had once been the Acolyte's dream, a distant hope shining like a lone star in their youth. But peace required vulnerability, patience, and trust, things that over time felt more painful than comforting. The dark side offered an alternative: strength without doubt, clarity without compromise, purpose without hesitation. Power felt warm where peace had felt cold, steady where calm had felt fragile. And so the Acolyte leaned into that feeling, letting the dark side fill the empty spaces left by grief and misunderstanding. It was intoxicating, soothing in its own fierce way, a promise that no one would ever hurt them again. And in choosing power, the Acolyte moved one step deeper into the night. 40. The birth of a hidden threat. As the Acolyte's training deepened, a quiet transformation unfolded. Not a sudden shift, but a gradual shaping of intent and identity. In the shadows, where their master watched with patient pride, the Acolyte's emotions hardened into resolve, and their doubts softened into obedience. They no longer walked the path of an uncertain seeker. They moved with purpose, guided by the dark side's steady pull. To the galaxy, they remained invisible, just another drifting presence among countless stars. But in truth, a new threat had been born, silent, unseen, and destined to one day shake the pillars of the Jedi's golden age. And with that quiet emergence, the darkness gained a voice, waiting to be heard. 41. The Phantom Lords of the Galaxy. Throughout the High Republic, the Sith existed as rumors, old tales told around dimming campfires and dusty archives tucked beneath temple floors. To the Jedi, they were specters of a long-vanished era, threats defeated so thoroughly that their return seemed impossible. But in the deepest corners of the galaxy, the Sith endured in silence, shaping themselves into watchers rather than conquerors. These phantom lords studied the Jedi from afar, observing strengths and weaknesses with a patience carved from centuries of hiding. They had no desire for premature conflict. Instead, they waited for cracks to widen, for complacency to deepen, for the perfect moment to strike. And in that patient watching, the Shadow's plan continued to unfold. 42. A master operating unseen. The Sith. Master guiding the Acolyte was a being of profound calculation, a presence felt only in whispers, glances, and fleeting ripples in the Force. They moved like a phantom across star systems, never drawing attention, never leaving a trace. Their knowledge of the Jedi was intimate, shaped not by hatred alone, but by a deep understanding of the Order's blind spots. To them, victory was not won through brute strength, but through years of careful shaping, guiding individuals like pieces in a quiet game of fate. Each apprentice was chosen not for obedience, but for potential, and the Acolyte's potential burned brighter than most. And under that unseen guidance, the darkness prepared its next silent step. 43. Lessons in stealth and patience. The Acolyte's training was not built on fury or spectacle, but on subtlety, the quiet art of vanishing into the folds of the galaxy. Their master taught them to move like a shadow at dusk, present yet unseen, listening more than speaking, observing more than acting. They learned that true power was not always loud. Often it lived in restraint, in knowing when to wait, when to watch, when to let events shape themselves. Through meditation, they practiced suppressing their presence in the Force until they became little more than a soft ripple in cosmic waters. This discipline was a foundation of Sith survival, a legacy perfected over centuries, and with each silent lesson, the Acolyte's shadow grew longer. 44. The Sith way of watching the Jedi. While the Jedi devoted themselves to peace, the Sith dedicated themselves to understanding. They studied the Order with an almost reverent focus, analyzing their rituals, their politics, their strengths, and their blind spots. To a Sith, knowledge was both a weapon and a sanctuary. The Acolyte learned to observe Jedi behavior with an eye sharpened by suspicion. The way they meditated to calm emotion, the way they resolved conflict through diplomacy, the way they overlooked the darker corners of the galaxy. Every insight fed a deeper strategy, a map of vulnerabilities drawn in the quiet spaces between stars. And through that watchful gaze, the Sith wove the first threads of their return. 45. The art of remaining unnoticed. To walk unseen was more than a skill, it was a philosophy. The Acolyte practiced entering crowded markets without a single glance lingering on them, slipping through starports like a passing breeze and drifting between worlds as silently as drifting dust. They learned to speak with gentle tones, to hide their intentions beneath calm eyes, and to let their emotions become as smooth and unreadable as still water. The dark side did not always roar. Sometimes it whispered, and in those whispers, invisibility became a cloak more powerful than any armor. The Jedi could sense many things, but not what they refused to believe existed. And in that subtle invisibility, the future of the galaxy darkened another shade. 46. The rule of two tested. Though the rule of two guided the Sith with clarity, one master, one apprentice, the bond was never simple. It was shaped by tension, ambition, and the quiet pull of destiny. In the Acolyte era, this rule was tested in subtle ways as shadows gathered and new possibilities emerged. The master watched the apprentice grow, not only in power, but in independence, sensing the inevitable moment when loyalty would become rivalry. Yet for now, their partnership held firm, bound by purpose and necessity. Every lesson strengthened the apprentice. Every success fed the master's confidence. Still, beneath that unity, the dark side whispered of futures where balance would shift. And through that whispered tension, the Sith's ancient cycle stirred once more. 47. Centuries of quiet planning. Long before the Acolyte took their first step into shadow, the Sith had been weaving threads across generations. Their plans were not measured in days or months, but in decades, even centuries. Strands of influence stretching through politics, knowledge, and forgotten worlds. They laid foundations in silence, allowing each era to build unknowingly toward their eventual rise. The galaxy saw peace, but the Sith saw opportunity. Each moment of Jedi complacency, each overlooked disturbance, became another stone set into their hidden design. The Acolyte was not the beginning of this plan, nor the end, but a vital piece in the Sith's patient tapestry. And within that slow, deliberate weaving, the seeds of upheaval were nurtured. 48. A seed planted in shadow. The rise of the Acolyte was not an accident, but the culmination of countless subtle motions, whispers in forgotten temples, choices made by frightened hearts, and lessons buried beneath centuries of denial. This individual represented more than a single life touched by darkness. They were a symbol of what happens when the galaxy stops listening to its own imbalance. The Sith Master knew this and cultivated that spark with careful intent, watering it not with rage, but with guidance tailored to the apprentice's deepest wounds. A seed planted in fertile shadow grows quietly, without fanfare, waiting for the perfect moment to break the surface. And from that soft, concealed beginning, the future's darkest branch began to reach toward the light. 49. Manipulations without footprints. The Sith of this era did not leave trails of destruction behind them. Their influence moved like a quiet breeze through tall grass, shaping events without ever announcing its presence. A senator's vote shifted unexpectedly. A trade dispute deepened for reasons no diplomat could explain. A Jedi sensed unease during meditation, but found no source to name. These were the fingerprints of subtle darkness, so delicate they hardly seemed unnatural at all. Every choice nudged, every doubt encouraged, every fear magnified by just a whisper. Through such small adjustments, the Sith steered the galaxy with invisible hands, never revealing themselves, never taking credit. And through these quiet manipulations, the future inched gently toward shadow. 50. The first sparks of revenge. Deep within the Sith Master's heart, a slow-burning fire had smoldered for generations. The ancient desire to reclaim what had been lost, to see the Jedi humbled after centuries of dominance. This revenge was not fueled by impatience or fury. It was cultivated with the discipline of a gardener tending a seedling. The Acolyte became the first flicker of a plan long in motion, a small flame kindled in the vast darkness. But revenge, even in its quietest form, carries immense weight. It shapes intentions, choices, and destinies. And the Sith believed that the Jedi's greatest weakness was believing themselves untouchable. And from that small, simmering spark, the coming inferno drew one breath closer. 51. Disputes over the Force. Within the Jedi Order, disagreements began to surface. Soft, philosophical tensions that drifted through council chambers like unsettled dust. Some masters felt the Force shifting and urged caution, calling for deeper reflection and renewed vigilance. Others believed the galaxy was simply evolving, insisting that the Jedi adapt rather than cling to outdated concerns. These disputes were polite, quiet, even respectful. But they hinted at a deeper fracture within the Order's collective intuition. The Force was changing, yet the Jedi could not agree on what it meant. Their unity, once seamless, now fluttered at the edges like a banner caught in an uncertain breeze. And within those gentle divisions, the night found its opening. 52. Masters disagreeing in silence. Though the Jedi Order valued unity, some disagreements were too delicate to voice openly. In meditation gardens and quiet hallways, masters exchanged subtle glances, small, wordless signs of differing beliefs. Some sensed a disturbance rising through the Force like a cold wind threading through warm sunlight. Others dismissed these feelings, trusting in the stability of the High Republic and centuries of peace. Rather than confront their unease, many allowed the silence to stretch, avoiding conflict in the name of harmony. But silence, when held too tightly, can hide truths that need to be spoken. And in those unspoken disagreements, the shadow's path grew wider. 53. Visions of darkness. Ignored. A few Jedi experienced troubling visions, glimpses of a future wrapped in twilight, with figures moving through swirling mist and sabers burning red instead of blue. These visions came suddenly, interrupting meditations or arriving in restless dreams. Yet when shared, they were often dismissed as symbolic, the mind's way of processing fear or uncertainty. After all, the Sith were gone, weren't they? Without confirmation or context, these warnings were gently placed aside. The Jedi preferred to believe in the stability of their age rather than confront the possibility of returning darkness. But the Force rarely speaks without purpose. And with each ignored vision, the night's approach became inevitable. 54. Warnings lost in politics. While the Jedi debated among themselves, the Republic's senators were consumed with their own concerns, trade arrangements, territorial disputes, and the delicate balancing of influence between worlds. When Jedi brought them early warnings of disturbance, many leaders smiled politely, offering assurances that the galaxy was stable and prosperous. A few even worried that the Jedi were overreaching, stepping beyond their role as peacekeepers. Political comfort became a barrier to truth. No one wanted to believe that the era of harmony could end, And so, the concerns, real though they were, dissolved into legislative noise and diplomatic niceties. And as those warnings faded, unheard, the shadow moved closer still. 55. Young Jedi, feeling the shift. Among the newest generations of Jedi, the subtle change in the Force was felt most clearly. Padawans, unburdened by decades of tradition, often sensed ripples that their masters overlooked. Some described a faint heaviness during meditation, as though an unseen veil had settled over their minds. Others felt sudden chills in places once filled with warmth. But youth brings uncertainty, and few felt confident enough to speak boldly about what they sensed. Instead, their questions softened into the air, unanswered and unnoticed. These young Jedi stood on the threshold of a future they could not name. Their hearts aware of shadows their elders refused to acknowledge. And within their quiet intuition, the Force whispered warnings yet again. 56. Old Jedi resisting change. For the oldest masters, the galaxy's shifting energy felt more like a discomfort than a threat, an unwelcome reminder that even peace can age. Having lived through eras of hardship before the High Republic's golden centuries, these elders believed deeply in the Order's philosophy. They resisted the idea that imbalance might be returning, convinced that such notions were simply the anxieties of youth or the misinterpretations of troubled minds. Their wisdom was vast, but sometimes wisdom becomes a wall rather than a window. The oldest Jedi held to tradition with gentle stubbornness, hoping stability would return if they simply remained still. And in that quiet resistance, the shadow slipped further into the cracks. 57. Tension behind serene faces. Though Jedi trained to remain calm, serenity does not erase emotion. It only teaches how to carry it. As disturbances in the Force grew, tension settled behind many composed expressions. Eyes lingered longer on temple doors. Conversations paused mid-sentence. Meditation sessions stretched into the night as Jedi sought answers that refused to come. They felt the shift, but lacked the clarity to understand it, creating a silent strain that wove through the Order like an invisible thread. Still, they continued their duties with grace, believing that balance would naturally restore itself in time. And behind those serene faces, the first true fractures began to take shape. 58. The Council's quiet blindness. In the highest chambers of the Jedi Temple, the Council met beneath vaulted ceilings and soft, golden light. They spoke with measured wisdom, relying on centuries of precedent to guide their decisions. Yet even these revered masters struggled to sense the dark tide approaching. Their meditations returned only stillness, as though the Force itself had drawn a curtain between them and the truth. Their confidence became a gentle blindness, not born of arrogance, but of trust. Trust in the peace they had maintained, trust in their own clarity, trust in a galaxy they believed fully understood. But the dark side thrives in the spaces where certainty overshadows caution, and behind the Council's composed deliberations, the shadow deepened its quiet concealment. 59. Faint echoes of future wars. Though the High Republic era knew peace, small echoes of future conflict occasionally brushed the edges of the Force. Jedi who listened deeply felt the slightest tremors. Hints of armies that did not yet exist, of battles yet to be fought, of alliances destined to fracture. These visions were clouded and fragmented, like reflections in rippling water. They showed no clear faces, no names, only silhouettes moving through smoke and starlight. Most who experienced these glimpses dismissed them as imagined fears. byproducts of the mind, trying to grasp a shifting galaxy. But those echoes were real, soft ripples of a storm still centuries away. And through those faint premonitions, the Force whispered of an age yet to come. 60. A galaxy growing restless. Across the Republic, a subtle restlessness began to take hold. A quiet discomfort that lingered in markets, Senate halls, and starports alike. Worlds once calm found themselves unsettled by rising tensions, unexplained disturbances, and political debates that grew sharper with each passing year. Even ordinary citizens sensed the change. They felt it in the way travelers moved hurriedly through starships, in the way communities clung more tightly to old traditions, and in the way unexplained rumors spread like drifting smoke. The galaxy was not yet in danger, but it was no longer fully at peace either. Something unseen was shifting beneath the surface, drawing all beings toward an uncertain horizon. And in that gentle restlessness, the night prepared to reveal its true shape. 61. Light and dark intertwined. In the deeper currents of the Force, light and dark wove together like strands of an ancient tapestry. The High Republic basked in brilliance, but even the brightest dawn creates shadows. Jedi scholars spoke often of balance, yet few fully understood how delicate that balance truly was. As light swelled during the galaxy's golden age, the dark side did not fade. It merely adapted, hiding within the quiet spaces left unattended. Sensitive beings felt this subtle intertwining, a gentle pull in two directions at once. The Force itself seemed to hum with contradiction, as though preparing the galaxy for a shift far greater than anyone could imagine. And within that quiet blending, destiny whispered of change yet to unfold. 62. Shifting currents of the cosmic force. The cosmic force, the great overarching flow that binds galaxies and guides fate, began to move with patterns that even the most attuned masters struggled to interpret. Its currents felt less predictable, as though the future were folding into itself, obscuring clarity. Meditation sessions that once brought peace now felt heavy, colored by impressions of uncertainty. Some Jedi describe sensing movement beneath the surface of the Force, like a deep ocean stirring after centuries of calm. These were not warnings exactly, but invitations to pay attention. Yet few did. The galaxy continued its quiet routines, unaware that the cosmic force was subtly rebalancing itself. And in that unseen shift, the first tremor of destiny rippled outward. 63. Visions, clouded by shadow. During this era, Jedi visions became increasingly difficult to decipher. What had once appeared as clear images now arrived in fragments, shards of starlight, muffled sounds, silhouettes that dissolved upon waking. Some Jedi saw swirling clouds of darkness obscuring futures they once read with ease. Others felt their foresight narrowing, as though a veil had been drawn between them and the paths ahead. These visions did not frighten them. Rather, they puzzled them, leaving questions without answers. The dark side had not fully risen, but its presence was beginning to distort the flow of time and perception, hiding what was to come. And through those clouded glimpses, the night's quiet rise continued unseen. 64. Prophecies, half remembered. Throughout the Jedi archives lay ancient prophecies, some carved into stone, others transcribed onto parchment so old it crumbled at the touch. Many spoke of cycles, of light rising, fading, and rising again. Some warned that the shadow would return not with armies, but with a whisper. Yet over centuries of peace, these prophecies drifted into obscurity. Jedi historians debated their meanings, often dismissing them as metaphor, relics of a more fearful age. Still, a few lines lingered in collective memory, quietly echoing in the minds of those who sensed the Force trembling. These forgotten warnings carried truth, though few recognized it, and in those half-remembered words, the shape of destiny waited patiently. 65. Worlds, strong with hidden energies. Scattered across the galaxy were planets where the Force pooled in unusual concentrations, ancient nexuses where light and dark mingled in ways the Jedi did not fully understand. Some of these worlds shone with vibrant energy, drawing seekers of peace and clarity. Others pulsed with a darker resonance, their landscapes shaped by centuries of silent turmoil. During the Acolyte era, these hidden places stirred, sending faint ripples into the Force. Creatures grew restless, ecosystems shifted, and the air itself sometimes shimmered with invisible tension. The Jedi sensed these changes but could not decipher their cause, and upon these powerful worlds, the coming balance quietly shifted toward shadow. 66. Ancient sites calling out. There were temples, ruins, and sacred grounds built long before the Jedi or Sith took their names, places where the Force was so dense it felt almost alive. In this era, these ancient sites began to wake, resonating with frequencies that had been dormant for centuries. Travelers who passed them felt chills without knowing why. Jedi investigators reported humming sensations, as though the ground itself were trying to speak. To those attuned to the dark side, these places offered invitations, soft, irresistible, almost melodic. They called to seekers who felt lost, offering answers the Jedi could no longer provide. And in those awakened echoes, darkness found paths long forgotten. 67. Strange disturbances, unexplained. Across the Outer Rim and the forgotten reaches of the Republic, small but curious disturbances began to surface. Starships reported sudden drops in power near unremarkable moons. Weather patterns shifted unpredictably on peaceful planets, bringing storms that formed without warning and vanished just as quickly. Animals known to be gentle grew skittish, fleeing from shadows no one else could see. Even droids recorded anomalies they could not logically explain. These disturbances were scattered and subtle, so faint that few connected them into a pattern. But the Force knew their origin. Ripples caused by the stirrings of darkness long thought gone. And through each unexplained tremor, the night's approach whispered more clearly. 68. The Force. Whispering warnings. To those attuned deeply enough, the Force itself seemed to whisper warnings through meditation and dreams. These were not visions, not clear prophecies, but sensations. A gentle tightening in the chest, a cold breeze where no wind should flow, or a sudden sense of sadness without reason. Some Jedi described hearing faint echoes while meditating, distant voices, muffled cries, or the soft hum of a presence they could not identify. The Force does not shout. It nudges. It breathes. It calls. Yet most who felt these subtle warnings dismissed them as emotion or imagination. The galaxy was too peaceful for anyone to expect the truth. And in those ignored whispers, darkness found room to grow. 69. Presences felt but unseen. As the Acolyte era unfolded, a peculiar phenomenon unsettled even seasoned Jedi. They sensed presences in the Force, faint signatures that flickered in and out of perception, like distant starlight behind drifting clouds. These presences carried neither clear light nor unmistakable darkness, existing instead in a strange, muted space between. When Jedi reached out through the Force to investigate, the sensations slipped away, dissolving as if they never existed at all. Some knights believed these were remnants of ancient energies awakening. Others feared they were signs of something or someone deliberately hiding. And somewhere in the galaxy, a concealed acolyte listened, unseen. And from those elusive presences, the shadow silhouette began to take shape. 70. Destiny bending toward darkness. As the High Republic era drifted toward its twilight, the very threads of destiny seemed to shift. The Force, ever responsive to the galaxy's heartbeat, began to bend toward a future tinged with shadow. This change was not violent or abrupt. It was quiet, subtle, like the slow dimming of a lantern at dusk. The currents that once carried clear visions now grew murky, and paths that once appeared bright became tangled in uncertainty. Jedi, who listened deeply, sensed this turning, though they rarely understood its meaning. The galaxy was on the cusp of transformation, not through war or declaration, but through the steady rise of choices left unresolved. And as destiny tilted, the first hints of night brushed the edges of the light. 71. Coruscant in its radiance. At the heart of the Republic, Coruscant shone like a jewel layered in light. Towers glittered beneath hovering traffic lanes, casting long shadows across the planet-wide city. At night, the skyline glowed with a soft luminescence, as though the stars themselves had settled into its architecture. Senators walked polished corridors. Jedi strolled through temple gardens high above the cityscape, and citizens lived beneath the illusion that nothing could disrupt such grandeur. Yet even here, where order reigned and peace felt eternal, faint tensions stirred. Soft rumors drifted through political halls, and the Force vibrated with a quiet unease felt only by the most sensitive. And beneath Coruscant's radiant glow, small tremors echoed through the future. 72. Jeddah's sacred sands. Far from Coruscant's shining towers lay Jeddah, a moon steeped in ancient mysticism. Its sands whispered with the memory of those who sought enlightenment beneath its pale skies. Pilgrims traveled here from every corner of the galaxy, drawn by the world's unique connection to the Force. Temples stood half-carved into cliffsides, their stone walls etched with stories of guardians, prophets, and wanderers who came before. During the Acolyte era, Jeddah remained a sanctuary, a place where the Force felt raw, powerful, and alive. Yet even its sacred dunes trembled with distant unrest, as though the planet sensed the gathering shadow long before others. And across those holy sands, the first hints of imbalance drifted like desert wind. 73. Brendok's haunted silence. On the remote world of Brendok, silence lingered like a living presence, thick, heavy, and filled with unspoken memories. Forests stretched in dense shadows, their branches twisting toward pale skies as though reaching for answers long forgotten. The land carried a strange resonance, a blend of life and loss that whispered through the underbrush. Travelers often described feeling watched, though they could never name by whom or what. During the Acolyte era, Brendok became a place where destinies quietly intertwined, shaped by forces neither Jedi nor Sith fully understood. The air held stories that refused to fade, echoing soft warnings in every rustling leaf. And in that haunted stillness, the shadow found fertile ground to deepen. 74. The Forest Temples of Kofar. Kofar was a world where nature and mysticism intertwined so seamlessly that even the Jedi treaded softly through its emerald forests. Towering trees arched into vaulted canopies, filtering sunlight into gentle beams that drifted across mossy paths. Hidden among these living cathedrals stood ancient Jedi structures carved from stone and wood, each one blending into the landscape as though grown rather than built. Force-sensitive creatures roamed beneath the trees, drawn to the serenity that wrapped the planet like a warm blanket. Yet even here, disturbances began to rise, subtle shifts in the forest's rhythm. Tremors felt in meditation, and quiet warnings sung by the wind. And within those sacred groves, the balance of the Force trembled softly. 75. The peaceful worlds of the Outer Rim. Across the distant stretches of the Outer Rim lay countless small worlds where life moved at a gentle pace. Farmers tended luminous fields, villagers gathered beneath starlit skies, and children played along quiet riverbanks untouched by the bustle of the core. These worlds believed themselves far from danger, wrapped in the comfort of distance. Yet it was often in these isolated places that the earliest signs of unrest appeared. Unexplained disappearances, strange shifts in wildlife, and whispers carried by travelers from system to system. The Outer Rim, with all its simplicity and calm, became the first to feel the subtle tremors of the approaching darkness. And through those peaceful lands, the night drifted quietly, step by gentle step. 76. Abyssal realms of dark side energy. In the forgotten corners of the galaxy existed places so steeped in dark side energy that even seasoned Jedi hesitated to step near them. These abyssal realms were not worlds of fire or destruction, but quiet, eerie pockets of stillness. Caves where sound refused to echo, valleys where light seemed to fold into itself. The Force behaved strangely in these places, gathering in dense, swirling currents that felt heavy on the skin and cold on the soul. Travelers who wandered too close described a sense of being observed by something ancient, patient, and vast. During the Acolyte era, these realms pulsed with renewed intensity, as though waking from a long sleep. And from those deep, hidden places, the dark side sighed its first true breath. 77. Isolated moons of strange magic. Scattered throughout the galaxy were small moons that defied easy explanation. Places where gravity shifted subtly, where time felt slightly slower or quicker, and where the Force shimmered with an unfamiliar hue. Some of these moons hosted forgotten shrines carved by hands long vanished, while others appeared untouched, yet carried a presence unmistakably aware. Jedi researchers visited occasionally, drawn by curiosity, but often left with more questions than answers. To the sensitive, these moons radiated a soft hum, like a lullaby sung by the cosmos itself. But beneath that melody lay a darker undertone rising during this era. The Acolyte, too, felt their pull. And on those strange moons, secrets waited beneath quiet skies. 78. The quiet corners of the Republic. Beyond the bustling trade routes and luminous core worlds were countless quiet places. Tiny stations floating in the void, rural settlements tucked beneath distant mountains, and small colonies where life revolved around simple rituals and shared meals. These corners of the Republic rarely saw Jedi, which made them fertile ground for unnoticed change. Here, rumors traveled slowly, shaped by whispers around hearth fires and cautious conversations beneath starlight. Some spoke of shadows moving through nearby forests. Others told stories of travelers who arrived calm but left unsettled. These places held no grand importance, yet their quiet isolation made them the first to feel the drift of the unseen tide. And through these silent outposts, the shadow passed gently, leaving barely a trace. 79. The first broken rule. Within the Sith tradition, secrecy was sacred, a shield that preserved their existence through centuries of hiding. Yet during the Acolyte era, that secrecy began to strain beneath ambition. Some Sith-aligned figures whispered teachings to more than one student, testing the boundaries of the rule of two. These were not full apprentices, merely listeners, acolytes drawn by curiosity or pain. Still, the rule was bent, even if only slightly, and in that bending, the dark side stirred with interest. For the Sith, each deviation was dangerous, but danger often fed desire. The galaxy did not yet realize it, but the first crack in the ancient order had quietly appeared. And from that subtle fracture, the future would one day shudder with consequence. 80. Families, torn by subtle corruption. In remote settlements and modest towns, families began experiencing gentle but troubling changes. A once joyful parent grew distant and irritable. A child with sensitivity to the Force became withdrawn, murmuring of dreams filled with shadows. Partnerships strained under pressures no one could fully explain. This corruption did not look like evil. It looked like worry, like sleepless nights, like the slow unraveling of trust. The dark side rarely arrives with a roar. More often, it seeps in quietly through sorrow, fear, or loss. Each troubled home became a silent echo of the galaxy's shifting balance. No armies marched, no sabers clashed. Only the fragile bonds between people weakened, thread by delicate thread. And in those quiet heartbreaks, the shadow found its foothold. 81. Growing mistrust among citizens. As disturbances grew, so too did a subtle mistrust across the Republic. Citizens who once relied on Jedi intervention began to question their presence. A few asked why the Jedi failed to sense the rising unease. Others wondered if the Order concerned itself more with politics than people. Rumors drifted through marketplaces. Stories of Jedi who seemed distracted, distant, or strangely troubled. These whispers were not loud enough to cause conflict, but they planted tiny seeds of doubt. Doubt, when left unattended, spreads easily. In this era of quiet imbalance, mistrust became another small fracture in the once solid peace of the galaxy. And through that soft growing doubt, the darkness crept closer to its return. 82. Jedi turning to internal conflict. As the Force shifted around them, the Jedi Order began to turn inward, searching for answers in their own halls rather than in the galaxy beyond. Council meetings grew longer, filled with soft-spoken disagreements that never fully resolved. Masters questioned the wisdom of ancient doctrines, while knights debated the balance between tradition and adaptation. These conversations were never heated. Jedi minds rarely succumbed to such impulses. But they carried a quiet tension, like strings pulled too tightly. The Order's attention drifted from the needs of distant worlds and focused instead on patching unseen cracks within. And in that inward gaze, the shadows outside their walls crept forward, undisturbed. 83. The Night Mother's rituals. Whispers spread of a mysterious figure known only as the Night Mother, a practitioner of forbidden arts who wandered forgotten worlds. Some described her as a prophet, others as a sorceress woven from moonlight and shadow. Her rituals did not summon storms or shatter stone. They were quiet workings of the spirit, stirring emotions buried deep within those she met. She taught that suffering held power, that fear could be shaped like clay, and that the Force had more faces than the Jedi dared acknowledge. To lost souls, her presence felt like guidance. To the Force, it marked another step toward imbalance. And through her gentle, haunting rituals, darkness found new hearts willing to listen. 84. Night Sisters, both feared and revered. The Night Sisters of Dathomir existed far from the Republic's reach, but their presence in the galaxy could not be ignored. Practitioners of ancient magics, they shaped the Force not through meditation or discipline, but through instinct, emotion, and ritual. Many feared them, misunderstanding their ways, while others spoke of them with reverence for their strength and unity. During the Acolyte era, the Night Sisters remained mostly isolated, yet their power pulsed faintly across the stars, a reminder that the Force was larger, wilder, and far more diverse than the Jedi believed. Even their quiet existence signaled a shift, proof that alternative paths to power were awakening. And from Dathomir's shadowed forests, the galaxy felt the pulse of forgotten magic. 85. Ancient powers stirring across the galaxy. Throughout the Acolyte era, subtle awakenings rippled across forgotten worlds, gentle signs that ancient powers long dormant were beginning to rise. Monoliths carved by civilizations lost to time began to hum faintly beneath moonlit skies. Caverns once silent now carried low vibrations, like the slow breath of a sleeping giant. Even uninhabited asteroids pulsed with strange energies, detectable only to those deeply attuned to the Force. These stirrings did not herald immediate danger. They were simply reminders that the galaxy had lived many lives before the Republic's golden age. But in their quiet resurgence, the dark side found nourishment, drawing strength from these forgotten echoes. And through those ancient murmurs, the past reached softly into the present. 86. The Jedi Order's increasing strain. Within the serene halls of the Jedi Temple, the quiet strain of responsibility grew heavier than most were willing to admit. Knights returned from missions, reporting disturbances they could not articulate. Padawans struggled with meditations once effortless. Masters felt the pressure of expectation as the galaxy looked to them for stability. Yet even as their concerns deepened, the Order maintained its calm facade, determined to uphold the peace it had curated for so long. Meetings multiplied, contemplations lengthened, and the comforting rituals of Jedi life suddenly felt like anchors in turbulent waters. They sensed the imbalance, though few could trace its source. And beneath their polished serenity, worry threaded quietly through every chamber. 87. The galaxy's first true shift toward night. As subtle disturbances accumulated across systems, a soft but undeniable shift settled over the galaxy. Lights flickered in starports without cause. The Force felt heavier, as though moving through thickening fog. Conflicts once solved with ease now lingered, unresolved and unsettling. Even nature responded. Storms lasted longer, forests grew restless, and the night skies of certain worlds darkened with an unnatural hue. It was not yet chaos. It was not yet war. But it was the first true sign that the balance had tipped, that light and darkness were no longer equal partners in the galaxy's song. Something unseen was rising, steady as a tide, and from that quiet turning point, the long night began its patient approach. 88. Acolytes awakening in the shadows. As the galaxy shifted toward imbalance, more individuals began sensing the dark side's quiet call. These were not Sith, nor trained practitioners, simply beings whose pain, fear, or longing created openings the shadow could slip through. Some lived on remote worlds, feeling strange surges of emotion with no clear cause. Others dwelled in bustling cities, discovering new abilities that frightened and empowered them in equal measure. They had no guidance, no structured path, only instinct and intuition pulling them deeper into unseen realms. Unknowing acolytes awakening one by one, their lives subtly bending toward the darkness without understanding why. And in their awakening, the galaxy's growing shadow found new hearts ready to follow its whisper. 89. Shifting atmospheres on key worlds. Across influential planets, from political hubs to spiritual sanctuaries, the very air seemed to change. On Coruscant, a faint tension threaded through Senate chambers, lingering like an unspoken worry. On Jedha, pilgrims reported sudden chills while meditating near ancient shrines. Even peaceful Naboo experienced moments where the water's surface rippled without wind, as though stirred by unseen hands. These shifts were not catastrophic. They were subtle, delicate, easily dismissed as imagination or coincidence. Yet for those who listened closely, the atmospheres of these worlds carried a quiet warning. The Force was no longer humming in harmony. It was vibrating with imbalance. And through each trembling breath of these worlds, the night drew closer. 90. A gathering darkness across the galaxy. Slowly, almost gracefully, darkness began to gather across the galaxy, not as an enemy, but as a presence. It pooled in forgotten temples, lingered in the hearts of the lost, and drifted along hyperspace lanes like a soft, invisible fog. Jedi meditations grew restless. Animals behaved strangely. Stars themselves seemed dimmer in certain sectors. The gathering darkness did not strike without warning. It simply grew, patient and silent, weaving itself into the corners of daily life. Across thousands of systems, beings felt an unease they could not name, a sense that change was coming. A gentle, irreversible shift had begun. And from this quiet convergence, the galaxy braced unknowingly for the dawn of shadow. 91. The Jedi's fading sense of peace. For generations, peace had been the Jedi's constant companion, a calm presence woven into every meditation, every mission, every lesson taught in the temple's sunlit halls. But in the Acolyte era, that peace began to fade in ways difficult to articulate. Knights reported returning from simple diplomatic journeys feeling strangely unsettled. Padawans sensed tension during group meditations, as though a soft tremor passed through the Force with every breath. Even the great masters found themselves lingering longer in contemplation, searching for a serenity that once came effortlessly. The galaxy was still quiet, still orderly, but the peace within the Force no longer felt whole. And in that fading calm, the early echoes of the coming storm took root. 92. The slowly rising darkness. The dark side does not rise like a wave. It creeps. It slips into cracks left unattended, grows in the spaces between unspoken fears, and strengthens where hope has thinned. Across the galaxy, this subtle ascent continued with graceful patience. A senator made a decision clouded by resentment. A traitor lashed out in frustration. A lonely wanderer listened too long to the whisper of their own pain. These moments were small, isolated, easily overlooked. Yet together, they formed a tapestry of growing imbalance. Darkness did not need armies to begin its ascent. It only needed hearts willing to listen. And through countless quiet choices, the night gathered strength, one breath at a time. 93. The dawn of a new era. As the Acolyte era neared its turning point, a soft but undeniable shift marked the threshold between what was and what would be. The galaxy stood poised on the edge of transformation, not through the clash of sabers or the fall of great empires, but through the slow awakening of forces long dormant. The Jedi sensed it in restless meditations. The Sith anticipated it with measured satisfaction. Worlds across the Republic felt it in subtle changes to their skies and seasons. It was the dawn of an era shaped not by heroes alone, but by shadows rising in silence, an era where destinies would soon converge. And from that quiet dawn, the galaxy stepped gently toward its long night. 94. The stage, quietly being set. As the final years of the Acolyte era approached, the galaxy began arranging itself into patterns that only the Force could fully understand. Across distant star systems, seemingly unrelated events aligned like constellations, forming a new shape in the night sky. A forgotten artifact resurfaced. A political debate intensified. A Jedi hesitated in a moment where certainty was needed. None of these moments appeared significant on their own, yet together they created a subtle momentum, a cosmic preparation for what was to come. The Force often moves this way, softly, gently, guiding destinies into place long before anyone recognizes the design. And as the stage formed beneath starlight, the shadow waited for its cue to emerge. 95. The growing divide in the Force. The Force, once resonant with unity during the High Republic's height, now hummed with a growing divide. The light felt thinner, stretched across a galaxy wrestling with uncertainty. The dark felt closer, coiling gently around hearts that were tired, wounded, or lost. When Jedi reached out through the Force, they sensed both beauty and discord, the harmony of distant stars and the friction of unspoken fears. This divide was not a clash. It was a subtle drifting apart, like two rivers that once merged now beginning to flow in different directions. The galaxy itself felt torn, quietly shifting toward imbalance. And within that widening space, the darkness found room to rise more freely. 96. The first signs of true encroachment. At last, the earliest unmistakable signs of encroaching darkness began to surface, not in grand battles or fiery conflicts, but in small, undeniable moments. A Jedi Knight felt a presence during meditation that did not feel like a vision, but a watcher. A senator made a decision, influenced by emotions they couldn't explain. A remote community experienced a night of fear without knowing why, each inhabitant waking as though from a shared nightmare. These quiet incidents marked the transition from subtle hints to real manifestations. The darkness was no longer merely gathering. It was beginning to touch the lives of ordinary beings. And through these soft, eerie awakenings, the long night finally pressed its hand against the galaxy's door. 97. The Jedi's late realization. Only when the undercurrents of imbalance grew too strong to ignore did the Jedi begin to understand what was happening. It came not as a revelation, but as a quiet tightening in the Force, a sensation felt simultaneously by masters meditating across different worlds. They sensed a presence, distant yet deliberate, like a shadow stepping softly into the edge of their awareness. The Order gathered in hushed meetings, reviewing signs they had dismissed for years, fragmented visions, strange disturbances, emotional unrest. Though they did not yet know the source, they finally acknowledged what had long been rising. But by the time realization settled, darkness was already well rooted, and in their delayed awakening, the shadows moved with newfound confidence. 98. The rise of the Sith in truth. What had been whispers and rumors for centuries finally began to coalesce into undeniable presence. The Sith, long believed extinct, were no longer merely watching from the margins. Their influence seeped into politics, shaped hidden alliances, and molded apprentices in secret corners of the galaxy. They had no need to reveal themselves outright. The time for open conflict was far in the future. Instead, They strengthened their quiet network, ensuring that when the era changed, they would be positioned like architects ready to reshape the galaxy's foundations. Their power no longer slept. It breathed, it stirred, it smiled in the dark, and in that awakening, the first true shadow of the Sith fell over the stars. 989. Echoes of balance. Beginning to shift balance is never lost in a single moment. It shifts softly, gradually, like the slow turning of a planet toward nightfall. The Force began showing signs of this shift in increasingly tangible ways. Visions growing darker, energies growing heavier, choices carrying deeper consequences. Jedi, who once felt grounded, now sensed the galaxy tilting beneath their feet. Acolytes drawn to the dark side felt empowered, as though the universe were finally aligning with their inner storms. Even ordinary beings felt the change, a sense that something vast and unseen was preparing to reveal itself. The balance had not yet shattered, but it had unmistakably begun to lean. And as the galaxy tilted, the night gathered itself for what would come next. 100. The night before the Great Turning. As the Acolyte era drew to its final quiet moments, the entire galaxy seemed to hold its breath beneath a canopy of distant stars. Worlds continued their peaceful routines, farmers tending their fields, merchants guiding ships through glowing hyperspace lanes, young Jedi practicing in sunlit courtyards. Yet beneath all this calm, the Force trembled with anticipation. Light still shone, warm and steady, but the shadow had woven itself too deeply to ignore. It lingered at the edges of every future vision, waiting with patient certainty. The night had not yet fallen. The great conflicts of tomorrow had not yet begun. But the stage was set, the players awakened, and destiny had already taken its first quiet step into darkness. And from this final breath of calm, the galaxy drifted toward the era that would change everything. And now, as our quiet journey through the Acolyte era comes to rest, may your mind feel lighter, your breath softer, your heart calmer than when we began. The galaxy has many ages, times of radiant light, times of deepening shadow, and countless stories woven between. Tonight we drifted through one of its softest turning points, a moment when the darkness stretched, slowly and silently, toward its long-awaited dawn. If these bedtime tales helped you drift through the stars, or guided your thoughts to a gentler place, I hope you'll stay with us for more peaceful voyages across the Force. Feel free to like, subscribe, or share which era you'd love to fall asleep to next. From the ancient days of the Old Republic to the whispered legends of the Jedi, to the rise and fall of empires that echo across the night, when you're ready for another soothing escape, you'll find the next dream waiting on the end screen. Another quiet night beneath twin suns. Another story carried on the soft breath of the Force. Rest well, traveler. May peace cradle your dreams, and may the Force guide you gently until morning.